What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today is July 8th of 2025. My name is Derek, author webmaster of Gematria.com. And today we got a pretty long video, I think this will be. We're going to be discussing the devastating flooding that's been occurring in Texas over July 4th weekend, resulting in the deaths of over 100 people. As always, we'll discuss the synchronicity of this event and how this synchronicity is expressed through numerology, through dates on the calendar, and the magical language of Gematria. So this headline here says 82 dead, but this count appears to be over 100 now. Devastating floods in Texas, particularly over the heart of Texas, which we will see is a theme of this event. The flooding in Texas was focused in a county called Kerr County. Now, Kerr County is a little bit north of the city of San Antonio, about 1 hour's drive away. Kerr is the name of a 9-time NBA champion, 5 times playing and 4 times as a coach, Steve Kerr, who was born in Beirut, Lebanon. Now, the name Steve also stands out in regards to flooding in Texas. Famous musician Stevie Ray Vaughan had a debut record named Texas Flood, which was released back in the year 1983. And indeed, we will discuss the numerical synchronicities with Steve Kerr, who finished his career playing for the San Antonio Spurs. In fact, he won an NBA championship in his very last game. And how it connects to another Steve, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now, something that seemed to confirm this to me yesterday is that after I finished making this post on July 7th, notice how Stevie Ray Vaughan died in the state of Wisconsin. Well, the Major League Baseball team from Wisconsin, the Milwaukee Brewers, debuted a new player yesterday named Andrew Vaughn. And in his very first at-bat, he hit a 3-run home run, which helped lead the Brewers over the Dodgers last night. So on the same day I make a post about Stevie Ray Vaughan, who died in Wisconsin, Wisconsin's Brewers gets a home run from a new player named Vaughn, which I thought was pretty interesting. Now, when you look at the floods in Texas that occurred over the weekend, we learned that this rain was the result of remnants of Tropical Storm Barry. Well, Barry is the nickname of a former United States president, Barack Obama, who used to be called Barry as a child. And a lot of people, for good reason, think his real name is Barry Soetoro. So then, after we discuss the synchronicity with these characters, we're also going to look at the rain-soaked F1 weekend. At this year's 2025 British Grand Prix, which took place over this same weekend, rain struck the track on Sunday, interrupting all 3 Formula races, F3, F2, and F1. The driver who won the F2 race was Jack Crawford, one of the only Americans in the entire sport. So on July 4th weekend, as the floods raged in Texas, the Star-Spangled Banner was played at Silverstone Circuit. However, the real story of the racing weekend belonged to Nico Hulkenberg, who finished the longest drought in Formula One history without making the podium. After 239 races, Nico Hulkenberg finished 3rd place for his very first trip to the podium. Now, what makes this all so interesting to me? Well, last year, in April of 2024, I made this video featuring both Barack Obama and Nico Hulkenberg. And this video explains how these characters are connected to the Tower riddle of the major arcana of the tarot deck. And just think about everything that's unfolded since I made this video. Timothy McVeigh, who embodies the Tower riddle, bombed the Oklahoma City Murrah building. This year, Oklahoma City won the NBA championship on the same exact day that Donald Trump bombed Iran. If you want to learn more about that, check out my video on the Achilles tendon injuries in the NBA playoffs. So what I'm going to be talking about today is essentially a culmination of everything I discussed in Superstream number 74, which you can find linked below down in the description. Now, this isn't the first time I talked about a rainy Formula One race and its connections to events in America. Last November, I made this post after Max Verstappen went from 17th to 1st to win the rain-soaked Brazilian Grand Prix. Now, earlier that year, the first ever NFL game was played in Brazil, and Max Verstappen's girlfriend, Kelly Piquet, is Brazilian. And on the same day that Verstappen won that rain-soaked race, the Green Bay Packers, who played the first game in Brazil, had a rain-soaked game against the Detroit Lions. And of course, Detroit is known as the Motor City, which gives us a link over to Formula One. So in this video, I'm going to talk about these floods and how they connect to Steve Kerr and Stevie Vaughn. We're going to talk a little bit about Barack Obama, but then we're going to talk again about Nico Hulkenberg, because 4 days before the race this weekend, I predicted we may see a surprise finisher on the podium. However, I thought the numbers pointed to Alex Albon because of his immense connections to the Pi code for this weekend. Albon drives for Williams, and Frank Williams, the team founder, had Pi connections in his name and the number of days to his death. However, it wasn't Alex Albon who made the podium because of all these 314s. In fact, Williams' next podium will be their 314th. Well, if you measure from Alex Albon's birthday to Nico Hulkenberg's, who did finish on the podium, they were born 3,140 days apart. And Hulkenberg made his debut for Williams on the date March 14th, or Pi Day. And now he drives for a team, Sauber, that made its debut on Pi Day. So the point I'm making here is that I picked up on a Pi riddle before the race, but I didn't take it that extra step that would have essentially clued us into what was going to happen. So thanks to everybody for tuning in live, whether you're live or archived. Of course, your viewership is much appreciated. Do feel free to like, share, subscribe. Some links for supporting in the description as well, but let's get started on the numbers. And if you're somewhat new to this channel, we look at the language of Gematria, which is based in the alphabetic order. That order can either be reversed or reduced to give us the base 4. And then we also talk about a couple of extended methods of Gematria, mainly the Latin or Agrippa's key, which is very similar to the standard Gematria cipher, which uses the current alphabetic order. And we'll peek at a couple of other ciphers as we go as well. So in regards to all of this tracing back to Pi, which we'll see in the back half of this video, Pi is 3.14. And in Gematria, 3.14 equals 1268. And this is important because this is the current Brown lunation number. We are in lunation 1268 on the calendar. Now, the number 268 is found in the gematria of Steve Kerr's full name. Again, this flooding concentrated in Kerr County, Texas. Stephen Douglas Kerr equals 268 in reverse. His name also equals 855 in Latin. This flooding on July 4th began 8,055 days after Steve Kerr's last game, which was played in San Antonio, Texas, winning the NBA Finals. So we saw two of the values, the 268 and the 855, but in the alphabetic order, his name equals 218, and in reduction, his name equals 83. Well, on the date the flooding began in Kerr County, Stephen Douglas Kerr was 21,830 days old, the same digits found in his gematria. In fact, the river that flooded is called the Guadalupe River, which also equals 218 and 83. The word floods also sums to 218, but this 83 is also the reverse value of flood. And what about this other Stephen? Stevie Ray Vaughan. Notice how his name also equals 83 in reverse reduction. Well, it just so happens that the year 83 is when Stephen Ray Vaughan released the album named Texas Flood. Measuring from the release date of Texas Flood to the date F1 driver Nico Hulkenberg was born was 218 weeks and 3 days. 2183, the same digits found in Steve Kerr's age. Stevie Ray Vaughan's age for his debut record was also found in the gematria of the name of the album. Stevie Ray Vaughan died when Steve Kerr was exactly 1,300 weeks old. And these digits are found in the values of the name Kerr. Obama is 103, and also the word flood equals both 103 and 130. So these two Stevies have apparently been connected this whole time. But next, I want to mention how Barack Obama is connected to this riddle as well. Because again, these floods occurred because of the result of Tropical Storm Barry. All beginning on Independence Day, which is, of course, a significant date for a U.S. president. When you write out the city of Kerrville, Texas, you get values of 181 and 64 in the most simple ciphers. These numbers are found in multiple ways you write out Barack Obama's name, his full name and common name, both 181. His full name also equals 64. Both of the names, Steve and Barry, both have gematria of 64. In fact, Obama's full name equals the 64th prime number, 311, matching the Beast, also matching flash flooding. This flash flooding was not only exactly 30 years and 11 weeks after the Oklahoma City Tower was bombed, but it was also 311 days after the anniversary of Stevie Ray Vaughan's death. when you write out the gematria of Texas flood, I also thought it was curious that you get the date that Barack Obama became the president. The 20th of January in 2009. Well, Texas flood equals 201 and 2009 in gematria. So once again, last year I made this post about how Nico Hulkenberg signing with Sauber is part of this Tower riddle that's all synced up with Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombing. And the big clue for this was the number 16. Hulkenberg is connected to Sauber and team owner Peter Sauber through the number 16. In fact, Hulkenberg drives the number 27 car in Formula One. And in both standard and reverse reduction, the word tower equals 27. And there's Nico with his old Haas car, the number 27. The tower is the 16th card of the tarot deck and depicts people falling from the top of the tower. The word flood has standard gematria of 160, which in numerology represents the number 16. The album Texas Flood came out exactly 16 weeks before Stevie Ray Vaughan's next birthday. And now we get a flood from the Guadalupe River, which equals 160. When Stevie Ray Vaughan died, Barack Obama was 10,616 days of age. 16 is the first number that sums to 33, and Stevie Ray Vaughan died 1,060 days after his 33rd birthday. Now, these same digits are found in the gematria of Heart of Texas, flash flooding, and the Tower 16 as it's written on the card. July 4th was 6,010 days after Barack Obama became the president. Remember, that date matches Texas flood in gematria. This measurement is also 16 years and 166 days. The Tower is the 16th card, and the Tower has gematria of 166. So does Twin Towers. The phrase Texas flood also equals 1066. And this would have been John McCain's age for the floods. Remember, in 2008, Barack Obama defeated Republican candidate John McCain. And not only would McCain be 1,066 months old, but July 4th was also 10 months and 6 days after his birthday. July 4th was also 6 years, 10 months, and 10 days after he died. That's also 2,505 days. And whether you write out flash flood or flash flooding, they both equal 255. So I don't mean to get too sidetracked with John McCain here, but his numbers connect almost as well as Obama's, all tracing back to the number 16. And again, check out Superstream 74 if you want to learn more about Obama's connection to the Tower. It's quite undeniable. So before I go on, I want to go back to Nico Hulkenberg and to talk about this number 239. Now, like I said before, Hulkenberg had the most races in Formula One history without reaching the podium, with a total of 239 Grands Prix. So this was a huge story. In fact, the F1 Reddit page changed their whole theme to Sauber and Nico Hulkenberg just to celebrate this guy. This weekend's race was 23 years and 9 months after the destruction of the Twin Towers in 2001. Nico Hulkenberg was born exactly 239 lunar phases after Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh. And now in his 239th race, he gets his first ever podium. Now, like I said, the Formula 2 race, which is the second tier of racing, was won by an American, Jack Crawford from North Carolina. And check out this guy's full and common names. Carlton Jackson Crawford equals 2309. And the name Jack Crawford equals 239. Well, 239 is the 52nd prime number. This is perfect because Jack Crawford was born on May 2nd, the date written 5/2. Hulkenberg's nickname is Hulk, which is 52 in ordinal. And the team he drives for represents Switzerland, which equals 52. In fact, this driver was born on a date with 52 numerology. The number 52 is important to floods. The word flood equals 52 in ordinal. This flood was in Kerr County, and Kerr equals 52. Kerr is located in the heart of Texas. Both heart and heart of Texas equal 52. And remember, Steve Kerr finished his career playing for the Spurs, which equals 520. Both presidential candidates from 2008, their full names equals 502. And notice how Texas flood came out 52 days before Barack Obama's birthday. Well, another 52 that we have to talk about is connected to another Formula One driver. Now, is it just me, or is the name Nico Hulkenberg really, really close to the name Nico Rosberg? Rosberg is not just any random F1 driver. He is the third most recent driver to win the World Championship, doing so back in 2016. Both of these drivers, obviously German, Nico, Berg, and this is all synced up to Nico Rosberg as well. Just check this out. Rosberg's full name is Nico Eric Rosberg, which also equals 520. Just like we saw with Spurs, equaling 520. Notice how Nico Hulkenberg's Gematria matches Nico Rosberg's birthday. Nico is 276, Hulkenberg is 1985. Well, Rosberg was born on 27/6 of 1985. So this is where things get wild, because now we're going to talk again about the pi riddle that's embedded into this. The last name Rosberg on its own equals 314, which is, of course, pi. The book Life of Pi, which was later turned into a major Hollywood picture, was published on the exact same day that the Twin Towers were destroyed, meaning the tower card is connected to pi. And this makes sense because pi equals 16 in Gematria, and the tower is the 16th card. Well, look at how old Nico Rosberg was on September 11th, 2001. He was exactly 16 years and 11 weeks old. pi equals both 16 and 11. This Grand Prix was 19 years and 116 days after Rosberg's F1 debut, but more important is this. The word pi has triple gematria of 49. And Nico Rosberg was 40 years and 9 days old for this past Sunday's race. The name Hulkenberg equals 49. He drives for team owner Peter Sauber, which equals 49. And in a minute, we're going to talk about Magnussen, whose name is 49. And, again, Rosberg, he won the championship just once, and then he immediately retired. And he won in the year 2016. Well, pi resolves the mathematics of the circle, which equals 216 in ordinal gematria. So earlier, I mentioned how I thought it was Alex Albon with the big pi riddle this weekend. And no question about it, his numbers are extremely pi-oriented. Again, this is something I picked up on before the race, but what I didn't realize is that Albon was 3,140 days younger than Nico Hulkenberg. And Alex Albon ended up finishing 8th in this race. And 8 is 3 plus 1 plus 4. Well, look at this. If you measure from the birthdays of Nico Hulkenberg to Nico Rosberg, you get 314 days. And again, Rosberg has the 314. Hulkenberg got to the podium at the British Grand Prix, which equals 314. Sunday was 31 weeks and 4 days after the anniversary of Rosberg's championship. It was also 3,143 days later. However, Sunday was also exactly 449 weeks after Rosberg's championship. That's the 87th prime number, matching his full name, Nico Eric Rosberg, 87 in reduction. The other Nico, Hulkenberg, was born in the year 87. Sunday was exactly 8,700 days after the destruction of the World Trade Center. And that same weekend, we had a flood. Noah's Ark equals 87 in the alphabetic order. So during the race at Silverstone this weekend, we had a collision with two Haas cars. Ali Behrman and Esteban Ocon turned into each other at, I think it was Brooklands. And they both did this synchronized pirouette. It was actually pretty funny. But the reason I mention this is because last year, Nico Hulkenberg drove for Haas. And his teammate from last year was Kevin Magnussen. And it just so happened that Kevin Magnussen was at the Grand Prix in the Sauber garage to cheer on Nico Hulkenberg. I mean, they hadn't shown this guy on TV all year, and all of a sudden, he's there. Well, this was F1's 1137th Grand Prix, which matches the gematria of Kevin Magnussen, 1137 in standard. His full name, Kevin Jan Magnussen, equals 1908, which matches the birthday of Nico Hulkenberg, the 19th of August. And there's a strange connection between these two drivers, because Nico Hulkenberg went the longest in his entire career before reaching the podium, right? Like 16 years it took him. This is his 16th year in the sport, matching the Tower riddle. Well, on the other hand, Kevin Magnussen scored a podium in his first ever race, and then he never stood on the podium again. So you could say that these two guys have like an opposite career path. Kevin Magnussen stood on the podium at the Australian Grand Prix in 2014, which was 4,130 days before this weekend's Grand Prix in Britain. And there's the same three digits in pi, right? 413, 314. The name Nico equals 413. The guy who's raced the most Grand Prix in F1 history is Fernando Alonso. And the British Grand Prix was his 413th start. When Kevin Magnussen stood on the podium in 2014, he was 1,119 weeks old, which represents the dates in the 9/11 attacks. This past Sunday was 11 years and 16 weeks exactly after Magnussen's podium. And Magnussen was born 7 years, 101 days after Nico Rosberg, which is kind of like a September 11th. September used to be the 7th month, so there's a 7-11 there. And the name Magnussen also sums to the 119th prime number. So again, what are the odds that this guy just happens to be at the Grand Prix, in the Sauber garage, and then Hulkenberg gets to the top of the podium? It's so weird. This race was held on the 6th of July, which is written as 6-7 in England. The name Nico has double gematria of 67. The name shared by both of these drivers. 67 is actually the 19th prime number, and Hulkenberg started 19th on the grid for this race. This means he went from 19th to 3rd, and the name Hulkenberg equals 193. In fact, Hulkenberg was also... Yeah, so he was 44 days before his next birthday, and 193 is the 44th prime number. And remember, the World Trade Center opened up on 4/4, April 4th. Just going to scan through here and see if there's a little more to mention. This 198 in Hulkenberg's birthday is also found in the gematria of Stevie Ray Vaughan. His full name equals 198. And Stevie Ray Vaughan has matching gematria with Nico Hulkenberg, 234 and 72. These floods occurred in Flash Flood Alley, which equals 72 in multiple methods. There's a few more notes in my posts, which you can always find linked below in the description. Noticed how Stephen Ray Vaughan equals 79, and he would have turned 70 years and 9 months old one day before the flooding started. And there's an intriguing connection with these digits because Hulkenberg was born during lunation 799, and Steve Kerr was exactly 799 lunar orbits old for the flooding. And then you look at the number of days between their birthdays, and you find Hulkenberg was born 7,996 days after Steve Kerr. So, again, there's always more to unpack. One other thing I wanted to mention is that Hulkenberg's team Sauber Motorsport has matching 1,068 Gematria with the Tower. And July 4th was 16 years and 8 months exactly after Barack Obama won the election. The Oklahoma City bombing killed 168 people, whether or not you include Timothy McVeigh. The name Stephen Douglas Kerr has matching 1608 Gematria with Kerrville, Texas. And consider how the story about the epic flood in the Bible is from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which equals 168. But the last thing I'll leave you with is this. The number 335. And we start with the Steve connection. Stephen Ray Vaughan died 335 days after Stephen Kerr's birthday. When Tropical Storm Barry ravaged Texas, Barry Soetoro, or Obama, was both 335 days after his birthday and exactly 3,335 weeks old. Guadalupe River equals 3305, and Kerrville, Texas equals 3,035. John McCain died 335 months after Stevie Ray Vaughan. But this brings us to Sauber Motorsport, whose team principal was exactly 3,035 weeks old for Sunday's race. And their chief technical director, Mattia Binotto, was 20,335 days old. Now, this is a lot of 335, but shout out to Cody, who pointed this out to me yesterday after seeing my connections with the 335. Elvis Presley was born in the year 35, and look at how old he would have been on July 4th. 33,050 days old. And why is Elvis important? Well, Elvis matches water in Gematria. 67, 68, 22, and 32. That's a perfect match for Elvis and water. And, I mean, what are the odds that Elvis's age, 335, matches this entire section of 335s that I laid out in my post? So, again, there's always more. This was America's 249th anniversary, which matches Kerrville, Texas, and flash flooding. But I think I've thrown enough at you guys for this video. I just thought it was important to show how the rain-soaked weekend for the British Grand Prix was all connected to the rain-soaked event over Texas. Because the world of sports is part of the larger human consciousness. The same human consciousness which finds itself deeply afflicted by the deaths of so many people, especially those of children, as we learned so many passing away in this flood. And just one of those storms that just kind of stops directly over the same place and puts a deluge right over the heart of Texas. All right, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, check the links down below in the description. You'll find some related posts and videos I made to this from the past. But that'll do it. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you all next time. See ya.